seeing this $1.5 billion bet on Monday morning, investment on Monday morning, just 15 minutes prior to Trump making his post that ended up sending the markets ripping up. I'm genuinely impressed with how blatant the corruption is getting. They're not even trying to hide it at this point. Your short-term pain is their massive short-term gains.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
One of my wife's favorite quotes comes from Maya Angelou, and it's, "When people show you who they are, believe them."
My whole life has been a life of accumulation. Money, I want more money. I don't even know why. It's like, just keep going.
Remember, I'm just a cat dad on YouTube, pointing out some coincidences I see. And if you find this content enjoyable, if you could, drop me a like. I'd be most appreciative of that. Now let's get into it. First, let's break down this $1.5 billion bet and why people think that it's suspicious. So, pulled up on the screen, I've got the ES Mini Futures. Now, futures aren't something I typically play with, so this is one that if I do mess something up, please feel free to correct me in the comments. How we first look at this is I've got it set up on the 5-minute candles, and you'll see up here, there's a little volume. And in the pre-market hours, something that's extremely typical is you have a lot lighter volume. So in these overnight hours, not as many people are playing the game, as it were. So you see significantly less volume, and that's completely normal. So what we notice is these 5-minute bars and these hours that are just like 2 hours prior to the post. We'll see like 2,600 volume there. Here's another 1,800. And it kind of just stays in that range of skirting around 2,000 plus or minus 1,000. Up until we get here, which is once again that 15 minutes prior. And at 15 minutes prior, there's a volume spike of 8,000, which on a given day, that's nothing. That would just disappear, get lost to the wind. However, in pre-market hours, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And it sticks out in such a way that because all these bars previous to it were just sitting at 3,000, 2,000. So there's like a 5,000 discrepancy of volume in this one bar. Now let's break down what that means math-wise. Let's begin by understanding what one contract does, and then we'll scale it up to the 5,000 contract case. So if you simply wanted to go and purchase one contract today, let's assume that the price is at 65 even, so 6,500. And you purchase one contract, well, you'll get exposure to roughly $325,000 of exposure from this position. Because this would be taking place in overnight hours, then the maintenance ratio of what we would need would be a little bit higher in the sense of rather than on a typical day, like during open hours, it being $500 a contract, it's going to be in the ballpark of $20,000 to $30,000 that are going to be required to do this overnight. So we'll just assume an 8% and get us to about $26,000 per contract. And with every point that the index moves, say we go from 6,500 to 6,501, well then we'd net $50. And the same happens if we went down $1. Alright, now let's scale it up to this $5,000 contract case to see how much money is even required to even take this position size. Now I've gone ahead and updated all the numbers to adjust for rather than one contract to be representative of 5,000. Taking a look at it now, our exposure is up to 1.6 billion. So contract-wise, we're in the ballpark about how many were used. Next, our margin requirement shows us that it's going to take about $130 million in order to even place this trade to begin with. Now, this trader ended up catching a roughly 200-point move, we'll say. We'll say they got in at 6,500 and they got out in the 6,700 range. So not necessarily hitting the top, but just getting close there, which they only had to wait 15 minutes for, and they would have banked themselves $55 million in profit. Now, if I were the SEC head, I'd probably be trying to dig into this. However, they just ended up resigning on Monday, so I don't think anybody's ever going to look into this.
My wife thinks I'm the greatest genius, that I'm a financial genius like Warren Buffett.
Looking at this administration, we can at least come up with a quick, short list of the people that at least have the capability of placing a bet of this magnitude. And we wouldn't have to do a 6 degrees of separation in this case. We could probably just do a singular degree of separation to develop that additional list that probably needs to be checked and investigated. And then there's this guy right here. This guy definitely needs an investigation. Honestly, I'm probably just going to make a video about him here soon.
Because he's gross.
Now I want to take us back to October of last year, where once again, there was some short-term pain that came shortly after one of these Trump tweets.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
However, interestingly enough, yet again, somebody was shorting up until the minute prior to him posting this tweet, and in such a massive amount of a position, like they knew something was about to happen. They literally created an account 30 minutes prior, shuffled in money in there, and then began shorting the living daylights out of crypto.
You know, when you can transfer $500 million worth of Bitcoin from an iPhone to an iPhone, having a wallet address, you know, at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
The next time you're at the pump filling up for about $4 a gallon and enjoying your short-term pain, just be aware that maybe you should be willing to sacrifice even more so that these insiders can squeeze out a couple more millions of dollars. I don't know, maybe your children or something.
There's always risk involved, but those kids, they understand the risk involved on taking both cargo and opening up the Strait of Hormuz.
Short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
Money, money, I want more money. I don't even know why.